You're welcome to my class, everyone. Now, today we are looking at direct proportion that has to do with two variables. Direct proportions that has to do with two variables. Now, we're going to look at this example. It says a ship sails 400 kilometers in 18 hours. How long will it take to cover 1,600 kilometers at the same rate? Now, I'll be teaching you a method that has to do with the use of arrow, and I call it arrow method or table method. Now, when you look at this, here we have two variables. We have the distance and we have the time. So I'm going to create a table that has two columns. I'll call it a distance and I'll call it time, right? Like this. Now, the next is for us to impute the figures that we have. When you read the first sentence, that says a ship sails 400 kilometers in 18 hours. So distance is 400 and time is 18. So you put on the first row. The second one says, how long will it take to cover 1,600 kilometers? So the distance is 1,600 kilometers, but the time is not given. So I will just represent the time with Y or X or any letter of my choice. The next thing I'll do is that now we want to put the arrow now. The first thing is that the arrow will point at the unknown, that is the what you are looking for, just like this, right? The arrow is going to point at it like that. Then the next one, we want to look at where the arrow is going to point at in distance. And you ask yourself, now, if 400 kilometers could be covered in 18 hours, is it going to take more hours to cover 1,600 meters or less hours? Okay, so definitely it's going to take more hours to cover 1,600 kilometers. And so we come to the distance part and then we look at it. Which one is more, 400 or 1,600? We see that 1,600 is more and our arrow will point at it. The next step you need to know is that anyone, any number or letter that the arrow is pointing at in your proportion is going to be the numerator of the fraction, right? So here we are going to have y over 18 equals to 1,600 over 400, right? It's just as simple as this. And we know that once you have this, the next thing is for you to cross multiply. And if you have watched my video on how to cross multiply, this will be very easy for you to do. So y times 400 and 1,600 times 18 or 18 times 1,600. The next is to just get the value of your x. 18 times 1,600 divided by 400, and that will give you 72. And so the time it takes to cover a distance of 1,600 kilometers is 72 hours. All right, now let's look at another example. Inverse proportion with two variables. Inverse proportion with two variables. All right, let's look at this. It says, if 9 men can do a piece of work for 20 days, how long will it take 4 men to do the same job? How long will it take 4 men to do the same job? Now we have two variables here. We have the men and we have days, all right? Men and days. So you can have two variables and call it men and day. Now for the first sentence, we have 9 men for 20 days. On the first row, 9 and 20. The second one says 4 men, but we don't know the number of days it will take them to cover the job. All right. Now, remember, I told you that we are using arrow method, and first of all, your arrow is going to point at the unknown, which is why the letters, the letter rather. Okay. Now, the next is to come to men. Before you can do that, you need to ask yourself, if it takes 9 men, 10, 20 days to cover a job, okay, will it take more days for 4 men to cover that job, or will it take less day? Alright, if you look at that, it's going to take more days, and since it's taking more days, you come to men. Which one is more, 9 or 4? 9 is more, so your arrow is going to point at it. And I told you at the beginning that any letter or number that the arrow is pointing at in your proportion is going to take position of the numerator in the fraction. And so y over 20 because y arrow is pointing at y, and then 9 over 4 because arrow is pointing at 9. The next is to cross multiply y times 4 and 9 times 20. You know, multiplication is commutative. It could be 20 times 9 or 4 times y, whichever one. And so the next is to say 9 times 20 divided by 4, and that gives you 45. And so it takes 45 days for 4 men to complete that same task. I hope you have learned one or two things today. Till I see you next time, bye.